I'd like to call to order the October 3rd, 2022 Bayport City Council meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adam, would you please call the roll?
Mayor St. Orders.
Here.
Councilmember Carlson.
Here.
Councilmember Dahl. Here. Councilmember Hanson.
Here.
Councilmember Gilmore. Here. All present.
Great. That takes us to the approval of tonight's agenda. Does anyone have any changes, additions, questions?
I do have one addition I would like to make, if that's all right. I don't know, do we put it under, where do we put it under?
Councilmember Hanson, I would recommend, based on what you had told me earlier, is to add an agenda item, discussion item at the end of regular business. So it would be regular business item number 3 or new business item 1.
Okay, I'm like, where's regular business?
Or unfinished?
Unfinished business? Item number 3, my suggestion is to add discussion of the Landucci one-story restriction. And with that, can I make a motion
Sure,
to
and
approve with that one?
that's in inspiration, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody at home knows. So, great. And I'm glad you added that. Thank you. Anything else from any other council members? All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve with that addition?
All right, so moved.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Go ahead, Connie.
Connie, thank you for a second. And all, no roll call, so,
No.
okay. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Okay, that takes us to our proclamations, commendations, petitions, and announcements. We only have one this evening, and it is the September Recycling Award recipient of Christopher Grecian at 966 Inspiration Parkway, who will be awarded for recycling efforts with a grant from Washington County. So thank you very much, Mr. Grecian, for your recycling efforts. That takes us to our open forum portion of the meeting, where we set aside 15 minutes for topics that are not on tonight's agenda. Does anyone have anything that they would like to come forward and discuss with the council? Okay, then we can move right along to our consent agenda. And we'll consider a resolution adopting items 1 through 8. The September 12th, 2022 City Council Workshop Minutes, the September 12th, 2022 City Council Regular Meeting Minutes, September Payables and Receipts, September Building, Plumbing, Mechanical, and Zoning Permits Report, the appointment of additional election judges for the November 8th, 2022 general election, award the quote for Perro Creek Restoration Project, the easement agreement for the 206 and 240 2nd Street North related to the Perro Creek Restoration Project, and pay application number 2 to Miller Excavating, Inc. for the 2021 box culvert replacement project. Any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. And roll call, please.
Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Aye.
Mayor St. Orders.
Aye.
That's all.
We do not have a public hearing this evening, so that takes us to our unfinished business, where we now have 3 items. The first is to consider a memorandum of understanding with the Bayport American Legion for Centennial Pavilion Project and authorize staff to proceed with a Centennial project. With that, I'll turn the mic over to Adam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. For the past several months, over the last year, the city has been discussing different ways to commemorate the city's centennial, which is taking place here. This is the 100th year anniversary of the city holding an election to change the name from South Stillwater to Bayport. I believe it was September 28th when that originally happened, so we just celebrated that. The name didn't take effect until January 1st of 2020, or 1923. But as part of that discussion, the council has been had come up with a concept for a pavilion, park pavilion to be added at the Village Green. And Councilmember Hanson, on behalf of the Bayport Community Action League, had contacted the American Legion, and we've been working on coming up with more specific details on that. And we have a design for pavilion, specific pavilion with some cost estimates for the installation. And the council has seen those. They were included again as part of the packet. We also, staff for this meeting, had come up with a draft memorandum of understanding to have in conjunction with the American Legion, where we can, because the city has not had the opportunity to speak to the American Legion directly, other than with Councilmember Hanson. We thought it'd be good to invite a Legion representative to the city council meeting and discuss the project, make sure we're all on the same page, and talk about the partnership. And so that's where we are today as part of the CIP, which we had discussed back in September. The council consensus at that time was to bring something more formal to the city council to vote on in order to authorize staff to move forward with this project. So with that, I'd like to introduce Commander Corey Quick from the American Legion, the Bayport American Legion, Hesley Jensen Post 491. And if there's any questions that the council has for Mr. Quick, Commander Quick, or that he has for the city, now is the time. So some of this is going to be maybe a little bit of a discussion, as well as as I said, the draft MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. It is just a draft, and I have not had the opportunity to discuss it with the city attorney, Tom Lunan. It just went out last week, and so the council is being asked to authorize staff to finalize that with the Legion, and as I said, then be directed to proceed with this project. So with that, I guess, welcome, Commander Quick.
Thank you. Should I come up?
Yes, please come to the podium.
Okay. I don't know how you guys got by without any like walk-ups for like open forum.
Yeah,
No one must have known you were meeting.
we keep it a secret.
I am Corey Quick. I am the current commander of the Bayport American Legion. And when this project was brought to us a few months ago from Michelle on behalf of the BCAL, we were really excited about it. This is also our centennial. And we're looking for a way to partner with the city of Bayport to commemorate that in a very permanent structure. And we think the Centennial Pavilion, or whatever you choose to call it, is a fantastic idea. And so I've looked over your draft of your memorandum of understanding. It is exactly what we talked about at our executive committee meeting. I think that formulation, the way you put it together, would be sufficient to secure the funding from the Bayport Legion for the balance. We've already made one donation, and I do think we were able to send it past the BCAL directly to the city on behalf of the BCAL.
Seen that on the city end yet?
I haven't. It hasn't made it to my desk.
Okay.
It may be in our finance office.
I spoke with our gambling operations manager a few weeks ago when Michelle asked me. She said it'd be easier on our, if you're just going to hand it to us so we can hand it to the city.
Yeah.
So we'll be amending our minutes in our October meeting to then reflect that first installment will go directly to the city, as will subsequent installments. So we're really happy to support this. If you have any questions for the Legion, I'm happy to take any of them.
Any questions?
The thing that I just want to clarify a little bit with you is the level of involvement that the Legion would like to have going forward. Are you sort of good that someone's taking the lead and go for it, or are you guys wanting to have a subcommittee that meets with someone from the city and we figure it all out, or how do you want to?
I think I think we're very happy to sort of be the silent partner in this. We of course are looking for some type of permanent plaque or something at the site that really shows that we were equal partners in the construction. Mm-hmm. And so that is important to us, but we certainly don't want to get down in the weeds and start to talk about what we think the design should look like and what are we gonna do about landscaping and stuff, because believe me, the members at the Legion will talk about that for the next 100 years.
And never agree. No.
They will never agree, and that's they get a lot of joy out of that.
Okay.
So,
All right.
well, we're really happy again to step back and I will act as a liaison with you, and some occasional updates would be about all we would need,
That
how
would be
things are
great.
going.
And we would definitely want to work with you on some kind of a groundbreaking or something. I mean, we
Right,
wouldn't
there's-
want to just take the lead. We want you to be able to have your part of that groundbreaking.
There's been a little chatter. November 22nd will actually be our 100th anniversary,
which is like a
date.
Wednesday or something.
something like that, and we're hosting an open house that night, and we thought, well, maybe we can throw a golden shovel in the ground at that moment, and take a few pictures, and
So it's the 22nd. Okay. I think I had 24th in my head. That's what Eric might have told me. But which is a Saturday or Friday? I want to get this right in our minutes.
22nd's a Tuesday.
that it is the 22nd.
It is the 22nd,
Yep.
which is a Tuesday.
Correct.
Ah, so it'd be sort of like an evening thing. Okay, that's
Right, and then we're hosting, like I said, we're hosting an open house and probably a dinner that night.
okay. I don't see why we couldn't make something like that work. Good. I do have some BCAL members who are interested in joining a committee to help with some kind of a groundbreaking or a ceremony or planning things for that. And I know I threw out an idea to you about an essay contest, and I believe that's also on our agenda tonight to talk a little bit about if we want to do that on our end. That could be something that BCAL takes the lead on as well. I just thought maybe the council and maybe some members of your executive committee might want to be judges or something like that. So that's why I think it's on our agenda, and I don't know, we'll talk about that later, but just again to clarify that we might do a little bit more with that. Talk about anything other than, if it's just literally we put a shovel in the ground, or if we want to do more activities around that, we can talk about.
It'd be nice to have some dignitaries there, some,
Like the mayor.
100-year-old member of, if there's a
Oh.
100-year-old resident of Bayport.
Yes.
That'd be a great picture to get.
Wouldn't it?
Or maybe two 50-year-olds, I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
We could probably do the
40 or
last
60-year-old.
101-year-olds, just whatever you can come up with.
I wonder if there are any 100 years.
I bet you have a 100-year-old resident within the city.
We might.
somewhere.
We should check at Croydale. But, all right.
Or Johnson would have been, but.
Any other questions?
Oh yeah, it was the 19th.
I'm good, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for being a good partner with us. We're excited about this project, and again, a big hand to Michelle there for, I think, all the work she's been doing back and forth and putting this together. I think you'll be really excited to finally see it in stone,
Yeah. Yeah.
brick, or synthetic
Or
materials.
whatever, steel. Yeah.
Okay.
I really appreciate all of your support and help in answering my questions and meeting with me, and yeah, it's been a pleasure to work with you guys at the Legion. So.
No,
and
we look forward to continuing to be partners with the City of Bayport, with the Bayport Community Action League.
Great.
We want to be strong community resource.
We appreciate that.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go home and have my dinner.
You should. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Okay, why did I have
So,
that? 26.
actually, are we ready? Just any other questions or comments or discussion?
Just the one note, as I said, staff still needs to, from Commander Quick's comments, it sounds like the MOU does have the framework that is expected. The terms, as I said, I had not had the opportunity to go over the fine details with the attorney yet, so that I'd like to do that, unless there was any comments from Mr. Lunan right now. But the staff's request is that the council authorize staff to finalize the MOU and then authorize us to proceed with the project, as we discussed.
The only comments that I would have had on the the MOU, again, understanding that it is just a memorandum of understanding, it's not necessarily a binding document, would be to potentially just cap a do not exceed amount on the MOU for both parties.
about that.
We have an estimate on there, and then potentially just to set forth a anticipated completion date. I know you had a start date in there, but just to say, to be done on or before November 2023 or whatever may be reasonable. Those would be the two that I would recommend adding in there. Other than that, I think it looked fine.
So, we've talked about this project a lot for the last few months, and I want to make sure that people understand where I'm coming from, because eventually this will be communicated across the community. So, I think, there's a lot of great ideas that come our way as a city council. In this case, it happens to be a pavilion. And whereas I think it's a really nice idea, it's an idea that has not been in our CIP until recently, just, in the last couple of months. And the cost where we started several months ago has greatly exceeded the initial conversations of donations and city contributions. The park dedication funds for Bayport are going to be dramatically reduced, if not drying up, once Inspiration is completed. So with all of the other park projects that are on our horizon, including Land and Water Legacy project that just was added a couple of years ago, and our current maintenance of our 4 parks already, I'm not comfortable with us adding another infrastructure to maintain or to redirect funds that we had dedicated for other projects. So I sincerely appreciate the Legion and Commander Quick and their partnership, and they've been a great partner on Legion Field. I just, at this time, with the estimate being about the city's portion around $58,000 that wasn't on the list, I can't feel comfortable moving forward with it. But that's why there's always 5 council members, and we'll just see where the vote shakes out. So, but I do appreciate Michelle's hard work and coordination with the other community members. And so, but I just wanted to make sure that my rationale was on the record. So with that, would anyone else like to make a comment, or should we move forward with a vote?
Well, with the
Someone like to make a
attorneys-
motion?
Well, can I just ask the attorney,
Sure.
when you said to put a cap amount, do you think that needs to be decided before we vote, or?
Well, the proposal that's in front of the council right now is to just allow staff to move forward in finalizing this. So technically, how the agenda is written presently is not asking you to finalize and approve a final draft. It's directing staff to move forward. You certainly could do a final draft, in which case we wouldn't even know what that number is. But as it's written in the agenda right now, it's just approval of the council for staff to move forward to finalize this. Work obviously with the Legion, they're going to need to sign off on it as well. Sounds like they are pretty comfortable with what we have already. But no, tonight is not necessarily have to have the final numbers. But in the final draft, we will want to have those in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of remiss, but I believe he talked about being, I think words to the effect of 50-50 partners, and I was trying to make sure that's spelled out in here somewhere when and if things run over, and
If it says the Legion will provide funding for half of the total construction cost, the city will provide funding for half of the total construction
Okay.
cost in sections 1 and then section 2.
why do I not see that? Okay.
It's the very end of page 1 says Legion will, so it's a little confusing.
Oh, I gotcha. All right, thank you. Yeah, I mean, to the mayor's point, if there are some things that could be added, maybe at a later date, some kind of not infrastructure items, I mean, certain things have to happen. Footings have to happen, a pad has to happen, but if there are some extras and some ways to maybe trim it down a little bit and make it a little bit more budget friendly for everybody, I think that makes some sense. I don't know.
I would also actually just note, because it does bring up something the Legion had mentioned that probably should be updated in this document, and it's who will be responsible for managing the project and overseeing it. Sounds like the Legion has indicated that they would take a back step. This talks about us being equal partners in the project, working cooperatively together. From what we had just heard from the commander, it sounds like they may just say, we just wanna, be a financer, and if you guys can manage it, which is another consideration, but that's not spelled out in here right now.
That's a good
So
point.
again, the direction to allow staff to work with the Legion, if council is inclined to move forward with this project or continue to move forward with this project, is probably the best direction to allow Administrator Bell to speak with the Legion, finalize that document with what they're expecting, which is what you heard here tonight, put some caps on completion dates and potential amount of money that's gonna go into it, just to make sure that's clear, and then again, about who's gonna be the one that's gonna be in charge of the project, which it sounds like they would prefer that to be the city.
What's the benefit of putting a completion date in there? I mean,
It
what if
just-
things happen that we can't abide by whatever date we put in there because we can't get the products we need or whatever?
Sure, yeah, so we can provide in there as what's known as a force majeure provision, which allows for protection if there's things that we can't account for, but what it does, it holds the parties accountable to say, this is when we're gonna have this done. It's not, I understand that half of the money's already there's gonna be some fundraising, there's gonna be management. If we just leave it open-ended, it sometimes can allow a project just to drag on and on. It's good to have something in there that's the understanding of both parties that this will be completed on or before X date. It doesn't have, it could be a reasonable deadline, but at least then it has the parties operating with the understanding of when this project should be done, so that we're working towards that goal.
I just don't wanna tie our hands with anything, but it sounds like we can write around that, basically. Okay, that makes sense. What was I gonna say?
Adam?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the one thing with the MOU, as the Attorney Lunan noted, it's not a binding contract, it's basically an agreement to agree to do something. If something happens where this project, whether it's supply chain issues or something causes this not to get constructed next year when we are anticipating it to happen, we can have another MOU, we can have another agreement where we would, incorporate that, or everybody basically update our understanding. So having some type of, target goal that this is when we expect this to be done. If something happens, both sides would come back and update it with a revised date.
Okay.
So
That makes sense. I do want to point out that we did do a community survey, as I believe the mayor requested, though I'm not sure she remembers that, but we did a survey and it did come back with a majority, it was like 62% that supported doing a pavilion in the Village Green to commemorate our centennial. So I just want to make sure that's clear. And I understand it wasn't in our CIP, but neither was the whole fact that it was our centennial until the last minute. Like, I think we learned very late in 2021 that it was gonna be our centennial, so we didn't really have a plan. Unfortunately, we can't help that this is the year that it is. So if we're gonna commemorate it, it has to be now. And I think we should also be very appreciative of the fact that we're getting a structure for our residents to use and a place to meet, and it's gonna add a lot of value to that park, and half of it is going to be paid for. So I think there's a lot of benefits to this, and I don't know if people, they probably haven't read the packet, because who would read the packet other than people who have to come to the meeting, but the description includes some historical markers, one for the Legion to be able to explain their history over the last 100 years in Bayport, and then another for the city to explain our history. So it's gonna be something permanent and lasting as a memory of this event. So it's not just a pavilion, and it's also gonna have some special, the Centennial Medallion will be built into the gables, at least on 2 gables. That's, again, we can talk about that if we think it's too pricey as it is. The Legion was very excited about wanting all 4 gables to have this in there, so that's why it's written that way right now. So the city would have 2 gables where we could put our commemorative logo and potentially something to be decided, the name of the park or the name of our town or the name of the pavilion also going across. So it's not just a regular old pavilion, it's something that's actually gonna be memorable, I guess, or whatever the word would be. So it's a special, unique pavilion. So that's why it's more expensive than when we had first started looking at it. We thought, let's just put a gazebo in the park. Won't that be nice? And you look at a basic gazebo, You can get one for $20,000 to $30,000. You know, they're pre-manufactured basically, and you build them. But I didn't think about, I don't know if everyone else did, but I didn't think about the concrete work that goes into it, the electrical, all of the other, even just getting the drawings to build the pavilion costs money. So there's a lot of things that I didn't factor into it, and that's my bad for not understanding it. I've never built a pavilion before or a gazebo, so I had no clue what to even think about. So I am appreciative of the council members who are supporting this and supporting it, because I think we don't want this opportunity to go by. We have a great partner in the Legion, and we have the support of our community, and I'm excited to see it happen. I think it's really going to be a valuable asset in that park that right now really has nothing, and we have a weekly event there from June to October, so it's going to get a lot of use.
Very good. I just have a different opinion on the long-term financial position for the city and the parks. We are very high park per capita, probably one of the highest probably in the state, and we continue to invest in new projects that require more staff, more maintenance, more investment, and I'm just concerned with the funds from the park dedications, running dry, that it will have an impact on other things that will need that maintenance or other things that were planned. But again, I'm only one of 5, so I appreciate everybody's point of view. And with that, Adam, I think we could probably take a call for, would someone like to make a motion?
Move to authorize staff to work with the Bayport American Legion to finalize the Centennial Project MOU as presented, or should I say with change? That doesn't make any sense. We're going to work with them to finalize it and proceed with the Centennial Project.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ethan. And with that, Adam?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson.
I'm torn on this because I just feel like this. I guess I'd feel better if there was an amount I knew we were not going to exceed, or that we could make some cuts.
We will make sure there is an amount we're not going to exceed. If you have one in mind, you can say it now. So.
I guess I share the mayor's sentiment that we've had other things on for several years, but yet I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad the Legion's with us. I guess I just want us to stay on top of it, that we don't go overboard on it, and that if we can cut anything, we need to cut, because there's other areas where I think are in need, or that we've committed to. So I guess I'm uncomfortable there's not a number, but
There will be a number.
you promise me?
Yes. And it will not be bigger than.
Well, and like we said in the workshop, if it goes over, this isn't binding us to do this.
Right.
We can
I guess I
always-
just want to know that the ones that are going to go for it, that you're also seeing that point that I'm
100%.
making.
I think
That-
it's just a matter of maintaining the record. We are actually in the vote right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry,
We're
sorry.
just chatting.
Okay, that's my
Just vote.
bad.
For administrator.
I'll go aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Because 60-some% of the residents are in favor of this, I will say aye.
Mayor Stenors.
Nay.
4-1, motion passes.
Okay. Move on to our second item of unfinished business, which is to consider a city council and staff appointment to participate in the stakeholder meetings related to the decommissioning of the Xcel Energy Allen S. King plant. Adam?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Late last week, we were contacted by Michael Wilhelmi, who is the new Xcel Energy Community Relations Manager that covers our region, Bayport being next door to the King plant. As the public may know, and the council does know, the plant will be decommissioned here in 2028. And as part of that process, the Excel Energy has created a stakeholder group that they will be convening early next year. They reached out and asked the city to designate or appoint 2 liaisons for that stakeholder group, one being a staff person and one being a council member or elected official. Staff is happy to, because we were involved in the Oak Park study group, the advisory group that they had done on their end, and for that, assistant administrator / planner Sarah Taylor has volunteered to serve as the staff liaison for that again, which I support. And the council, if the council wanted to make an appointment now, or the new council, because it's not meeting until January, can appoint someone at that time. It really doesn't matter. We will let Excel Energy know. I don't know how much will change between now and then, but it's just putting it out as an option because there will be a new council in January. We will be making, at the first meeting in January, we'll be making all the liaison appointments as we normally do. But Councilmember Hanson has indicated over this was Friday, after the packet went out, her interest in this, but I have not discussed it with any of the other council members. So at this point, I guess there'd be two motions or one motion appointing a staff person and direction on the council liaison.
Conversation or discussion by the council?
Thank you, Sarah, for stepping up and doing that for us. And I would be willing to do it. I mean, odds are that I will still be on the council since I'm running unopposed, but if you want to wait until January, I understand that as well. And if someone else is interested, we can talk about that too.
Any other
Well, when is their first meeting?
It has not been decided yet. They're very early in their process. They just indicated that first quarter next year.
Oh, we might as
So
well wait,
possibly January at the earliest.
unless
is
you
when
want,
they would.
it's fine.
Well, I'm
And we
just
can also have
thinking
an
maybe we should
alternate.
wait, because you don't know what you'll be, oh, sorry, Adam.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to keep
interrupt
speaking.
you. But,
If there was more than one council member interested, the council can also designate an alternate. And if something does change, for whatever reason, the council can deal with it at that time. Again, staff's recommendation was just, it was more open-ended.
I guess I
go
would
ahead.
say if Sarah's the staff person and then we wait on the council, that would be
That's a
I guess
motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second
Thank
it.
you, Ethan. Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Thank you, Sarah. Third item was added earlier. It's the discussion of the Landucci one-story restriction in the Inspiration neighborhood. Adam, I'd like you to, well, we all, as council members, received emails from concerned residents. And so I would like, Adam, if you'd be willing to give us a little bit of background.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I did hand out a map, and I have some other diagrams and images. The map that you should all have in your seat is the updated tree planting plan. Just one moment. John, if you could switch over to ClickShare, please. That comes up. What this is involving is there's 3 lots up in the Villas of Inspiration being developed and built by Nathan Landucci. This was approved back in 2018 in November. And at that meeting, there were 3 lots that were designated as 1 story by the council as part of the PUD. And it's not. There we go.
He's coming to the rescue.
Had to click one more button. Sorry. Thank you. My fault. Okay, so this is the plat map with the addresses. As you can see, there are 2 lots on the far west end on the north side and 1 lot on the far east end that were all restricted to 1 story. And at the time, there wasn't any further restrictions put in place other than just the designation of 1 story. Staff, when we got the first building permit for one of these lots, which is this first lot, lot 1, block 1, the address is 720 Inspiration Place. It met the criteria for 1 story. The council is aware of this. I explained to them and the residents how that determination was made. The residents that the city heard from are directly to the north of lots 1 and 2 of these, and there was, I'll say they were upset. There was frustration with the size of the structures, despite the 1 story restriction. The home on lot 1 ended up actually being taller than some of the other houses that are considered 2 stories on the block. And as was explained in the lengthy letter and explanation, is that technically it did meet the 1 story, despite its overall height being as high as it was. Obviously, in hindsight, based on the council's intent at the time, further restrictions perhaps would have been appropriate, but those were not put in place back in 2018. Now we haven't received the building plans for the next 2 lots, and they are, one thing I had learned just late last week, I spoke to a couple of the council, because they are custom homes, the builder does not select which homes are being built. The buyer purchased the lot, they come up with what they want, they're notified, they're instructed that it has to be 1 story. They work with Mr. Landucci's architect and devise the home. They design the home, and then the builders build it. But Mr. Landucci did not specifically pick that design for lot 1, nor does he select the other lot for any of them, the actual design of the home. So one of the concerns that was shared by the residents is the amount of privacy that they lost with these homes being built so close to them, and that was one of the things that Councilmember Hansen had asked me to look into, see what other opportunities that the city had, what other options there were for the city to either further mitigate or at least address those the loss of the lack of the privacy. I'll go to a couple of these next pictures. I guess this is previous from the house that's now looking at 720. That has changed to this. As you can see, this structure, it qualifies as a 1 story, but it is a large structure. One thing to note, Councilmember Buckley, former Councilmember Buckley at the time, did acknowledge that depending on the roof pitches, there could still be sightline issues. As you can see, there were multiple trees that have been planted both by the homeowner as well as Mr. Landucci. The map that you have in front of you, there's 2, and it's a little difficult to see, but this is the original tree planting plan. All of the green marks, which I'm not sure how well it's showing up on your screens.
Wait, before you get into the trees, can you just help me understand, is that lot number 1 that we're looking at?
That is lot number 1,
Okay.
the one with the hope.
And so that's coming from 1129's perspective on this other map, just so I,
Probably
Correct.
11 through 11.
or, that's what I'm trying to figure out, like where they're.
Yeah, so on the, I don't know if you can see my cursor. Lot 1 is the home that was just built.
Yeah,
Lot 2 is
Oh,
where
that
that
number
view
2
is taken
there.
from. It's about somewhere
Okay.
in here on the deck.
so that is where, okay, that's what I kind of pictured. And then the other complaint came from the house to the east
To
of
the
that.
east of it,
Okay,
directly to the right of the map.
thank you, sorry, I just want to make sure.
The,
I got
the
that.
green trees are the trees that were required under the planting plan that Mr. Landucci had to build, had to plant. And all the blue dots on that, it's kind of hard on your screen, or on the handout, the colors didn't come out very vibrant. Those are some of the penalty trees that were further imposed by the city because the original trees that were planted were a foot to too short from what Mr. Landucci had agreed to plant. And so you can see the placement of those have been where we could fit them in. One thing to note in some of the conversations that I've had, there really is not an opportunity to plant additional trees directly behind these two properties. Even the ones that were on the plan took up a bit of the real estate. As you'll see, this is from 2001 screenshot of some of these trees that were planted both by the developer and the homeowners. So there really isn't a way to add additional screening, and within a few years, these trees will be, they will be, sorry, different screens here. I mean, they're going to be, significant natural screening as it is. So with that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions that the council may have. Staff has, we've discussed there really aren't a lot of other legal options. We can't, as I explained, we can't dictate any further restrictions on there's one more house you can see in that empty space between the new home and the other one.
So that would be lot number 2?
That would be lot number 2. And the O'Keefe's property is to the left of this picture with those evergreen trees that they planted.
So those aren't the trees that were planted by Landucci? Those evergreens were planted by
There
the
were
resident?
4. The image is a little tricky, but there were 4 evergreens that they planted.
I know both homeowners have invested quite heavily in their landscaping.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know what was them and what did
Right.
Landucci actually do there then, if they planted those trees and they didn't do anything, looks like.
Well, these are on their property. These are on the homeowner's property.
So if you show us that other picture from the other angle, can we see what they actually planted on the other side? Is that what that was for?
I don't have these circled, but if you look at
So is that those are the 2 homes right there that are?
There were approximately 7 trees that were planted. These smaller ones, and again, this is a while back. These were the 7-foot trees
Which
that were.
Is
I
the
think
gray-
that's what's so frustrating about
Yeah,
this is that
nothing.
Mr. Landucci disappointed us by planting trees that were not up to what he agreed to originally, and it's taken a great deal of time for him to actually add in and refill in the others that are promised. So that's been one frustration. The intent of the council, and we were very, very deliberate, was that these were to be 1-story homes, not 1-story homes taller than 2-story homes.
Mm-hmm.
This is a matter of what's legal versus what's right, and it is really frustrating. And I know I reached out to Adam. I was very angry that I feel like we were kind of played by the developer. I mean, he had the opportunity to convey this information to these homeowners or who's ever buying the lots that this is what they should have been following. And I don't feel like I don't know, but I would question whether he actually communicated the intent of the council on what 1-story meant. And now these homeowners who, we looked in the eye and we've disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very, very frustrated. And I guess there have been multiple times over the time that I've been here as mayor that I've seen legal versus right, and it's just frustrating. So I don't know if there's other.
I echo exactly what you're saying. It's very frustrating because I know how hard we worked to make sure that we felt comfortable with this and that the residents felt comfortable with it, and it seemed like we had a great compromise in the end, and we ended up with, you know, all of that. Nobody paid attention to it, apparently. I assume Landucci was responsible for talking to the actual architects and home builders and saying, this is what the intention is, and who knows if he even told them that it's a one-story restriction, because, I mean, because it was only on lots 1, 2, and 16, everything else, so maybe they just forgot all about the one-story restriction, is the feeling I'm getting.
I remember specifically the discussion was that as the line of houses run from east to west, that it would be softened. That was the whole intention of one. Nobody in their 99 people out of 100 that drive by that house will not say that is a one-story house. That people think of a one-story house like a lot of the older homes in town, the traditional ramblers with the low pitched roof. This is full of gigantic steep trusses that is useless space. Frankly, everybody's entitled to build the house they choose. There's just big empty space up there. There's no, and it's infuriating that we have egg on our face when we're trying to do the right thing, and people take advantage of the situation. And I wish he was here to talk about this too right now, and we could tell him to his face that he didn't act in anyone's best interest except his own. And very, very frustrating situation. And you would hope that somebody would realize their ways and want to rectify it, but I guess that ship has sailed.
Just for the council's information, so I did, when I spoke with Mr. Landucci last week and conveyed the council's feedback as well as the residents, that was when he said, you know, this obviously was not, he did not pick this design, so it was not intentional, which was one of the assertions by one of the residents, and that's when he explained the process to me. But I did convey to him, you know, based on the frustration of the intent, regardless of the legal requirements. Of course, the city doesn't have any ability or authority to dictate to him what is built, but I did explain to him that anything that could be done to further minimize the impact on the remaining homes would be more in line with what the city was expecting, as well as appreciated by the people that are impacted. So he said he'd be discussing that with the property owners, the homeowners. That there isn't one for the lot 2, but for 16, that was purchased a year ago, so they are in the design stage.
Yeah, and I'm afraid lot 2 is going to look odd between the two very tall buildings when they actually do follow the rules for number 2. So I can't. Yeah, and so I think it was Mr. O'Keefe that suggested at the very least, can they be respectful about where they're putting the windows in those homes if they're going to be, not facing to the north or whatever, so that they feel like they have some level of privacy in the homes that were already there. I don't know, you said we can't really control that, but if we can at least explain to Landucci so that he explains, okay. The
updated request from Mr. O'Keefe.
And I don't know what we can do about the tree situation, but it would be nice if we could do something, because I feel like we wanted Landucci to put in a much bigger, better trees, and even what we probably wanted wasn't going to cover whatever ended up being built there. But I feel like whatever we can do, I would like to talk about options for helping. I know they've already done some plantings, but what can we do as a city to help those residents that are now?
Well, the trees that, if you look on the plan, the trees that Mr. Landucci was required to plant, those are they do meet the, and again, this is a year or two after when they were initially planted, but they do meet the original expected height, and they they will continue. I mean, to be very candid, this is probably too many trees that the homeowners planted to try to achieve some privacy. With screening, those trees at some point are probably going to choke each other out or damage the grass. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation where you can't plant solid trees without, at some point, it becoming a problem. So it is finding a balance on granted, on the plan, those trees that are shown there are, that's a mature tree. At some point, they will be, that much of a screen. But when when these are being planned, they're looking at, 50 years, 100 years, not, 2 years. So that's just kind of the reality of it. I don't know what other trees could be. I mean, Landucci's trees were planted, and yes, they were too short originally. They have been either replanted, or there's some that died from the drought, and then so those have been replaced. The bonus trees, none of them were able to be put back here because they were already full of trees. So that, I mean, in time, again, it doesn't resolve any issues right now. I readily acknowledge that. But in time, there will be additional screening that will eventually grow. I don't, as I said, staff doesn't have any really good tools to offer to address these.
Adam, can you explain a little bit about how we weren't able to put an actual height number on it? We couldn't say a 1-story not to exceed, 20 feet from grade or something. Is that accurate to say that?
Well, at the time, back in 2018, we didn't have any type of design standard for the development anywhere in our city, Inspiration or Phase 2. And so I know that was one concern that was brought up by the city attorney at the time. In theory, the city council could have arbitrarily picked a number of a maximum height. Unfortunately, one of the oversights was that the default height went back to the rest of the Phase 2 development, which was 35 feet. This home was under 35 feet. It was 34 and I think a quarter. There's some other single stories on that street that were not required to be single stories, and so that's partially why some of the home roofs are lower. And some of the 2 stories, they ended up, because of the grading, because of the variation in the lots, ended up being less than 34 feet as well, which you can see in the one photo that was shared with the council. This was a requirement that was added, if you recall, at the council meeting, and it wasn't something that staff had spent really any time in further researching or further digging into. It was not one of staff's recommendations, so we hadn't thought that through. I mean, if this is a miss by staff, it's not for, obviously it wasn't intentional. There was no, at the time, there was no reasonable expectation that this would be an issue, other than possibly Councilor Buckley would obviously be more familiar with construction and the impact. This might be perhaps what he was referring to, as that there still could be sightline issues depending on the roof pitch, as there is in this house. And the new house, sorry, you guys aren't seeing everything. So that would be, he didn't make any other suggestions at the time, and because this wasn't something that staff had come up with, I don't want to say we were deferring to. Obviously, we don't expect the council to be experts on home construction, but this wasn't something that we had done or been doing for any of the other properties. So it was kind of just
But Adam, don't you think that, I'm sorry, but when the council has an intent and we are not attorneys, that our attorneys should interpret that for us and make that language happen. And I mean, Tom wasn't our attorney at the time, our city attorney at the time, but I feel that there's responsibility there, that when we as a council have given direction that there should be legal language that is interpreted and written and that reflects what our desire is. We should not be the ones that have to come up with the exact legal descriptions. So I feel there was a miss. I feel like we got outplayed by, and I'm not convinced that, I mean, it's so frustrating and disappointing that these homeowners are now the recipients of something that was not our intent. So, but I strongly feel that the legal team should have represented our intent, and that should have been written before my signature went on it to sign the agreement or the ordinance or the thing with them.
It's a conversation that should have taken place that evening if there were questions, and that, as I said, staff didn't further dig into that as to what the council intended by one story. I mean, when I hear one story, which is what, I was there, I expect a one-story home, but I don't know if everybody even now has the same understanding of what a one-story should be. I mean,
It
this
should have been less than the two-story homes added.
Yeah, exactly, that would
You
be,
know,
I'm-
so
and not by
I'm
inches.
not trying to
really
obfuscate.
interested in playing word games here, but
No.
it's, and I'm just saying that we hire legal counsel to help with those, navigate those things for us, and I feel like our legal counsel in that instance didn't.
Well, there's
Close the
nothing we
loop.
can do about that now, and now we've learned a lesson. I think what's surprising to me is that there isn't a number of feet that denotes what a one-story
one-story
is.
home.
Because that's what I would have just assumed. If we said one story, that would mean it would not exceed a certain height, but apparently that's not a clear thing in the building world. So that's where I think it all fell apart, is that we didn't designate the height. We just said one story. So not knowing that someone could interpret that and build something nearly 2 stories is, how could, I don't know that legal counsel could have foreseen that either. They may have thought of that, but I'm not sure. I see that why that could have happened. We didn't think of it. We didn't say, well, let's make sure we put a maximum height on it. We just assumed one story meant one story in the building world, you know?
At least smaller in height than the two
Well,
stories.
yes, but would you have to write that in? No, you wouldn't think you'd have to specify
Well, I
that
remember
because
him
it seems
saying
obvious.
too that the way the land was, that it would not be a problem and that it would, I mean, I remember that distinct
that if
conversation.
if they did
So
one
in
story.
my world, I wouldn't have asked because he was explaining to us about the bank and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, a 2-story or 1-story house does not look the same height as a 2-story house, I guess. And
Right,
that's-
yeah, so
And
I
it has
mean,
which is fine. I would love to have it too. It has a lookout basement, so that's half a story right there. It's not a traditional basement like
And maybe
probably
that's where
most
we're
of us
off.
have, where there's nothing sticking out of the ground. There's probably 3+ foot windows. I believe that house has a lookout basement on the north side, so that sort of is a way of, and maybe I'm wrong, sneaking in almost like a story and a half in a way. Yeah. Am I wrong that house has a?
John, could you bring up the click share, please?
so Ethan was the only one that wasn't
I
here
know.
during
So I
that
just wanna-
time, so
I just
what
wanted
do you have
to
to
say-
say?
Obviously, I
Yeah.
wasn't part of it. I
That
feel for the
foundation.
homeowners, no question about it. Is there anything that we actually can do? Like we all are upset. The homeowners are upset. You guys are upset that you got played, bamboozled, whatever you want to call it. But what can we actually do? Is there anything?
There's nothing that the city can do to further restrict either the home that's been built or the 2 remaining homes.
Okay.
So we can't do anything about the building, and you're saying there isn't anything we can do about trees because they're already kind of maxed out in terms of us adding trees. But is there some compensation that we should be considering for those residents, or is that opening a can of worms?
I think you're opening a can of worms.
Okay, I just want, that's the only other option, I think, if they've already invested in the trees and we, you know.
I mean, that's my opinion.
No, I totally see it, that's a can of worms, and how do you know when to ever apply that same rule in the future? You
Like,
know,
how
all of
do
a
you-
sudden
How do you
it's,
monetize that? How do you-
exactly.
It's impossible to,
But, I mean, I wish there was something
is that it
else
right
we could
there?
do.
This
I
is the
don't-
building plan that
um,
was submitted with the building permit for the new home. So this is with staff and Minspect who reviews the plans.
So what
See.
faces
So
the
this is the,
north?
this- the
Upper
upper right
left?
is what faces the street. As
Yeah.
Councilmember Dahl noted, this does have a lookout on one side, so that's gonna be the west side of the home. The rear
Oh, it's
view
west.
is this lower right home, and then
Yeah,
the
it's like a
lower
one-story.
left is the east side of the home. The front being on the left, far left side. So this, I mean, while it does not look like a small, you know, I think there may have been, I don't wanna attribute any assumptions to people, but 1960s style bungalow, you know, smaller, you know, more, not flat roof, but lower pitch, home that obviously is not the case here. And again, I'm not trying to defend the home or, you know, what was decided or what was chosen to build here. This technically meets the 1-story restriction. It's not a short 1-story, it's not a small 1-story, but again, as I had explained, the restriction in and of itself is 1-story. I don't know if, you know, one of the questions was maximum height restriction. This is the, you know, from, it's part of it's because this lower part of the lookout, that's what gets it to the 34.25 feet. If you didn't have that and it was just built all at grade, you'd have 2 feet plus the 4 feet of the lookout half story. The 2 feet being the 2 steps up from the street because of the increase in the grade. I did explain to the council. I know there were some questions over the impact of lower pitches. The 912 pitch that was selected for this, I think it's 20, if I remember correctly, it's 22 feet if it would have been 22 inches for each step in the pitch that it would change. So not quite 2 feet, almost 2 feet. If it would have been an 812 roof, 712 roof, you could have 4 feet farther. So there could have been ways that could have made this house less impact with pretty much the same home, other than the lookout basement.
Is that just all lofted space in there then, if there's not
Yeah,
an
it's
extra
just
story? It just,
uninhabitable
okay, so they just
attic.
put a big old ceiling in there and now it obstructs the view of the neighbors.
It's not vaulted.
It's not vaulted, it's
No.
just
No,
it's just,
it's just
like,
I was thinking it was
yeah,
vaulted
empty.
when I looked
it's
at
not
it.
vaulted. So it's just like an attic?
yeah,
Okay?
non-climate controlled.
Unusable.
I feel so bad for those people. Okay. Well, I don't know, if there's nothing we can do, we should just move on. I just wanted to make sure that we were all clear on what happened and that the community can hear that we, you know, paid attention to this and we feel bad. And I wish we had an option of something we could do to make it better. It's just
Is
really
the,
frustrating.
The one up there, are we gonna have any issues with the new one, the 100 houses that are going in up, that are connecting to the water? That's not our city.
That's not our city.
It's
We
not
don't
our
have to
city.
worry
Okay,
around.
Good.
I mean,
They
one
won't
of the-
complain to us
Yeah.
if anything happens.
Obviously you know, if we can take anything away from this, it's not that we have, as you just noted, we don't have a lot of future developments, but, you know, staff, at the time, we're not familiar with building construction. That, you know, that's why we have mid-spec, that's why we have, you know, we even just for this, we don't do a lot of developments. We contracted out the planning for the plat approval with Mr. Lick. If this were ever to come up again, clearly staff's on notice that if the council comes up with an additional condition at the meeting, we're gonna, you know, maybe say that's gonna need further discussion. You know, this wasn't, staff didn't think this was gonna be an issue. We heard one story and you know, that's what the council wanted. Clearly that what was built did not meet the expectations of what the council expected.
So, well, and we are built out, so, but hopefully other communities and their councils are watching as well and will be made aware that this can be something that they should look out for as well.
Well, we still do have 2 homes left, 2 and 16. Those lots are not built, right, by Landucci?
Correct, and
But I
as
don't
I
think that we
noted,
have any.
Well, I know we're
conveyed
under
our-
control, but we can,
our
like,
position or our, you know, I provided the feedback based on this home's construction. And
yeah, maybe push back a
he
little
said
bit.
he would, you know, he'd share that with the buyers.
Yeah.
There's no buyer for lot 2.
Yeah. If you want to be friendly with your neighbors, maybe think about not making it 35 feet.
Well, they probably didn't even realize. the
Well,
people that
exactly,
bought
that's what
the
I mean,
house,
they don't know, so wouldn't it be nice if we could share that with them? Sort of was Landucci's job, but. All right, well,
Okay.
thank you
Well,
for
thank you.
reviewing all of that, Adam, and I honestly, I don't blame you guys for not knowing that there would have been this issue. I can see how that could happen. Even John Buckley, who was our building inspector, didn't say we should put a height restriction on it. I mean, he thought about the pitch, but he never said we need to do something further. So it's really hard to, you know, blame anybody specifically. It's just, you can't think of everything, so don't feel bad. I mean, feel bad, because we all feel bad, but it's not, we're
Well,
not
and,
like.
you know, just one more time, obviously this wasn't, you know, staff wasn't trying to.
Right.
No, and I know the
I'm not
council
saying
understands that,
staff,
but just generally
I'm
for
saying
the public, you know,
legal.
this was not, you know, if anybody in the public wants to blame staff for missing this back in 2018 and not adding, you know, additional, you know, restrictions or clarification, you know, we, at the time, from the initial, you know, this, as the council recalls, this was a controversial development from, you know,
Right.
for the last 15 years. So staff was trying to, you know, look out for the interest of all the residents
Right.
while respecting the, you know, the property owner, Mr. Landucci's legal rights as well.
It just would have been really helpful if our attorney at the time, our city attorney at the time, had said, if there's an intent, then language has to be included. That would have been the role, I would think, of a city attorney, to have that guidance. So I don't think we can't do anything about it now, but thank you for bringing the information to us and explaining everything to us, and lessons learned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Okay, we do not have anything under new business, so that takes us to our city council liaison reports, and I'll start with John.
Middle St. Croix Watershed did not meet last month. We meet this Thursday, so I'll have a report next month.
Okay, great. Connie?
Well, the library board did meet. The first hour was Jill's review. So they told me not to come for it. But anyway, and then basically she updated us on the project and how it's going, and it's going really well. We had looked at some color palettes to kind of, this library board is adamant about having color and they're not just having it white, which I agree. So they kind of came up with a palette that they all agreed upon. And then, Jill talked about we talked about the new website that they're, working on, and it's almost ready. So she's happy to hear that. And then also the logo, for the new library. They've got a couple that they're considering, and they're even thinking about maybe having two of them. One for when they advertise and one at the building. Because they were thinking of the pine tree because of the White Pine Inn, but yet they were going with the river. So they had some very, I thought the designs were really good. They hadn't decided totally what they were gonna do, but that was what we discussed. And then weekly story time now is, Adam is running it here at City Hall. No, but it is, it is being held at City Hall. And the next meeting is in 2 weeks.
Great, thank you. Ethan?
They did meet last week. I was unable to attend. I did chat with one of the guys that was there, and it sounded like they went over some of the audits that came in. We've had to reschedule like 4 meetings. But I didn't get any minutes or anything, so I can't get in too much about it. But we're meeting again in November, so I'll have more then.
Great, thank you. Michelle?
I'm on the planning commission, and we did not meet since the last meeting. And I'm on the Anderson and Citizen Advisory Board, I believe, and I haven't heard anything from them. And of course, not really a liaison to Bayport Community Action League, but kind of. And we had Derby Days, and it was amazing. A group of people that worked on that did a great job. So the party in the park was, I think, probably the best attended street dance is what it used to be, that we've had. So it was a lot of fun, and thank you, Matt, and your staff for all you do to help us make Derby Days happen, because there's a lot of public works things that have to happen, especially for the duck derby. You know, he's got to get that whole creek ready for the ducks to go down, and
Oh, yeah.
we sold more ducks than we have ever in the past, so that's our fundraiser, so that's nice. So thank you to everyone who did that, and all the winners picked up their checks, and it's all great because no one was there. None of the winners were at the race, which is so disappointing, but it was fun.
It was a great
Fireworks.
event. Congratulations. It
Yeah.
was a fantastic,
It
like
really
the
was.
best Derby days that I've ever gone to, and they're
Yeah.
each wonderful, but this one was just,
I have special thank you to Dan Pauline. Is that how he says his last name? That if you didn't make it to see the centennial display here at City Hall, it was really amazing. I imagined maybe 2 tables of a few things that he had kept over the years, but it was full in here, and he spent a lot of time putting descriptions together of each of the things, and just in the display. And I wish we could have kept it up longer, but we're using City Hall for so many other things that it didn't work. So I'm maybe twisting his arm into doing another display in November during the centennial groundbreaking. We'll see. Just for those who missed it, because it was really, really great. And then of course the medallion got found in the first 20 minutes, like it did better. I swear those kids were out like at 6 a.m. looking for it before there were any clues out or something. I don't know how they found it so fast.
Probably were.
And we did sell the special silver medallion too in the silent auction for $150 to Erin Crowder, who works at the bank, and she wants to make sure it's somewhere publicly displayed. So that'll be nice. Yeah. So, is there questions about any of it?
no, it was just
Okay.
wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all who came. Made it fun.
And I do not have a report this month either, so over to you, Adam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Chief Azinger.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. For September, the call volume was 100 compared to 69 in 2021. The year-to-date call volume is 847 compared to 697 in 2021. Our monthly drills included a tour of the Bryan Rock quarry that's just south of town here, station cleanup, and coal fire training at the Excel King plant. Fire inspections are ongoing, as well as plan reviews. We've got a couple of big complexes coming in Oak Park Heights in the pending future here.
Meetings, we had Washington County Fire Chiefs, the Washington County Fire Improvement Team, Derby Days for the fire standby, the Stillwater Area Carnival and Homecoming last Friday, and that was just a huge hit. Our 343 Memorial Run on 94 that we do with both Wisconsin and Minnesota Fire Departments, department head meeting, and our anniversaries this month were Cam Godford, 2 years, and Barney Sachs with 10 years, so we're getting a lot of experienced people there. Fire prevention is next week. We'll be doing our open house on the 15th from 9 to 12 with a station tour and equipment review. And then my favorite is various fire prevention visits at local preschools. And I get all those questions from those little kids. With that, I stand for questions.
Any questions for Chief?
No question, but I just want to let you know, Chief, that I talked to the pyrotechnics company that does the fireworks for Derby Days. I don't know if you'd heard, but a very large thing fell into the crowd this year, and there's always a little bit that falls. And I know in the past we've also had issues with some of the debris falling into boats. Either, I can't remember if it was actually in the marina or if they were parked, and we're getting more and more boats out there too to come watch the fireworks. So I talked to him about what he didn't realize that had happened, so we're gonna maybe expand the don't enter range next year. I don't know if we have to make everyone go down the hill, but if you want to think a little bit about what you think seems safe.
We mentioned it at the department head meeting because I was there and I watched it come down on the blanket.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Two things is
It was scary.
we're probably going to have to do like what goes on up at Stillwater. We're going to have to get water patrol involved in pushing boats back, put up temporary zones or boat zones. And then also, given that area in the short, we're probably gonna have to move it further
Down the
past
hill.
the playground, more
Yeah.
towards the parking lot.
Yeah, we might just all need to go down onto the ball field.
You can
I don't
see
know.
them wonderful from the
You can
playground.
I was gonna
even
say,
better.
the
Well,
best-
Yeah, right by
I get there and fight for not for
Not
the
the
spots.
playground,
the ball field.
ball field,
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah, we-
great.
The best spot is the people that sit in their cars. I walk by and I hear I'm trying to get my blanket and everything. I'm going,
They're just
they could
parked in
listen to
their
music,
car.
watch it go right over the
Yeah.
I'd
car.
have to be
So-
going
Where do they
like this
launch
to
them?
look out of my car.
The very south end of the rocky part of that,
Lakeside.
beach kind of, at Lakeside. Yeah.
They're
So-
gorgeous.
Yeah, we should, for next year, we should probably, after the first of the year, have some tentative meetings just to go over a plan.
Oh,
Yeah, we go, for
okay.
Stillwater, we're involved in March in some of their meetings. Of course, they're bringing 50,000 people in town.
Yeah. Another thing we need to think about is, because it's in the zone for the debris, we have to lock the bathrooms. So we need to make sure we have a porta potty at Lakeside Park during Derby Days if we have fireworks again, that's outside of the zone, because there's gotta be kids that need to go to the bathroom at some point during fireworks, right? So it just feels strange that we lock them and the only option is down where they're already blocking us off. The porta potty's down by the Girl Scout house. So it was just something I hadn't thought of until this year that we need to make sure we're doing. So that has nothing to do with fire, but anyways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Eastman is not with us this evening. She's actually on vacation for this last week and this week. But you saw her report. Nothing really significant for the police department, which is normally a good thing. But with that, Public Works Director Klein.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, fall is definitely upon us, although today was pretty nice. So department activities are moving from kind of mowing and parks cleanup to street sweeping and tree trimming. We've been busy trying to clear some of the boulevards and alleys so that they're passable, when we get significant snow, and for the snow plows that go down them. A couple of the larger projects, our Eagle Scout in town, Tad Nelson, replanted 20 trees this weekend in Lakeside Park. This was a good replacement for the ash trees that Public Works has been actively removing from the park. And then the ash tree treatment and removal, our contractor has removed. This fall was a small project. I think we did about 12 trees, primarily because we had already did a significant one of about 20 trees earlier this year. in order to meet the grant requirements that were due in June. And then planting of those 12 replacement trees will occur here before the end of October. I did provide a map of the current state of the ash trees within the city. So since the EAB program has started in 2019, the city has replaced 108 trees, and has removed 112 ash trees, so almost a 1-to-1 replacement. A couple of them were in locations that were unable to essentially be replaced. We've also treated 82 trees with an insecticide. The hope with those is that we can either have them live a long life or have them replaced at some point in time, but it's buying us some time, at least for those trees. There are still about 179 ash trees left in various locations throughout the city. This would either be parks, cemetery, or on the city boulevard. So while we've done a fair amount, we still have a significant amount to go. With our budget that we have, I think we can feasibly do somewhere between 30 trees, about 30 trees a year. So it's going to take us another 5 years. And if you haven't noticed, there's a fair amount of ash trees that are not doing well. In people's yards primarily, we tried our best to take the ones down that have been infected the longest, and that are starting to die. But I would encourage residents to get those trees removed as soon as possible, because once they start potentially rotting, then they're a significant safety hazard. The city has not actively gone around to take these trees, but if a resident calls about a neighbor tree or something like that, the city does have a policy to require the removal of those trees. And then finally, the seal coat project, Allied Blacktop finished their last component of it, and that was for paving not paving, but it was called the slurry seal on the bike paths in town. The project went very well, and hopefully the long-term maintenance of it extends the life of the trails another 5-10 years. Stand for questions.
Any questions for Matt?
So it looks like, because you probably did this map before Tad did his plantings,
Yes.
they're not on here. All those
Correct.
20 yellow dots are missing from Lakeside, but there's so many ash still left at Lakeside Park.
Yeah, Lakeside Park had a very high percentage of ash, and so we're diversifying what we plant back as for replacement trees, which means that as pretty as maples are in the fall and even all year, we do not plant any maples because the city has too many right now as a percentage wise. So,
Because then there's going to be emerald maple borer disease or something.
yes.
Well, thank you, and thanks so much to our Eagle Scout. What a tremendous project, and we're just very, very, very grateful. So thank you, and congratulations on your projects. And thanks, Matt, for working with the Scouts so well.
Yep.
Over to you.
Thank you, Matt. Assistant Administrator Taylor.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, we finally have received approval from the Metropolitan Council for the city's 2040 comprehensive plan. The approval was subject to 5 conditions consisting of minor revisions to reflect the Met Council's advisory comments and review record. Staff will be working on the necessary revisions in the coming weeks with a presentation of the final plan and adoption slated for the November 4th City Council meeting. Absentee voting for the November 8th general election began on September 23rd and can be done in person at the Washington County Government Center. As you all know, the Bayport Mayor and 2 City Council seats will be included on the ballot at this election. Just a reminder, all Bayport residents vote at the new fire station on 5th Avenue North. The next edition of the city's newsletter, the print version, Bayport News, is in process and distribution is planned for mid-October. The winter edition of the city's e-newsletter, Bayport Brief, is anticipated for December. Residents can sign up to receive the e-newsletter if they haven't done so already on the city's website by clicking on the Connect with Us button. Colleen Siegfried and Aaron Oakes have confirmed they will be seeking reappointment to another 3-year term on the Planning Commission. So I'd like to recognize and thank them for their service. And then I did note a couple of important upcoming city meeting dates and events, particularly October 10th, which is Indigenous Columbus holiday, and city offices will be closed. And then the Veterans holiday on November 10th. Those are 2 holidays that lots of people are not top of mind. So I just wanted to do a reminder to know that we're closed. So I stand for questions.
Any questions for Sarah?
Just to
Great.
clarify, the next city council meeting's on the 14th. I think you accidentally said 4th, just in case anyone heard
Oh,
that.
I did?
Got confused.
I did.
Yeah.
14th.
Okay.
You had it there.
November 14th.
You just said it wrong.
Sorry. November's busy with the election, a lot of different
Yeah,
dates.
that's
I
all right.
changed the meeting, so thanks for that correction.
Yeah, and,
That's you.
oh, so the library would be closed then on October 10th as well, since the city offices are closed? Or not? Will they, they will have their,
are, I believe, open.
oh, okay, just wanna
Yeah,
make sure
there's,
people knew
I
that.
believe they have an event or something, there's a flyer I saw on the door.
Yeah, I didn't read it, I saw it, and I didn't.
So the library, for their designated hours, they have the ability to open City Hall. So they're open even when City Hall's closed.
Yeah,
Past
because they're
outside
open on
City Hall.
Saturdays and stuff too, but, so they will be
set
open.
their own holiday schedule.
Okay. Good.
Thank you, Sarah.
Check on the library schedule, whether or not it's open.
We read the sign differently. I thought it said they were gonna be closed, and it said they were gonna be open, so just for clarification for the library,
Check the website.
check the website or contact
Okay.
them. Yeah.
All right. City Administrator.
Sorry, it's just bugging me. We'll have to check the website for the library hours. Days. A couple things. I included as the last page, as I had mentioned earlier to the council and the public. This year, the city is required to provide supplemental budgetary information that will be going out in the next year's proposed taxes to all the residents in November, when they also formally learn of the truth and taxation date and the proposed levy. As I mentioned, a copy of that is on the back of the last page of the agenda packet. You'll see there it has the proposed levy for each Washington County, city, and the school district that's applicable. And then it has a section for the county, the city, and the school district at the bottom. The city, the categories are very summary, and they don't necessarily directly match up with anything that we've discussed in our budget process. It's close to what the city has to report to the state auditor every year. So if there's any discrepancies that anybody sees, I'm happy to explain what those are. But it will be some good information for the public just to see kind of which categories where the city spends the money and where we get the revenue from. But again, if you have questions, if the public has questions on what is included in any of those categories, please don't hesitate to contact City Hall and we can get you that information. Just an update on the cannabinoids sale. I've been to several meetings just in the last month since our last meeting, discussing with some other city administrators and managers over what they're doing. The vast majority of them have all also imposed a moratorium. There's just been a couple that have not, but everybody's kind of leaning towards, one, waiting to see if the legislature makes any changes that would impact what cities want to do, and most of them are, as I mentioned, leaning towards probably most likely doing some type of licensing scheme. The city of Woodbury is in the process of just approving their licensing scheme, which will be similar to their liquor and tobacco regulation. And as I mentioned earlier, Stillwater is doing a licensing program, which is staff for Bayport. From what we've been discussing, that's probably where we're going to end up, is some type of licensing with various restrictions as to hours, location, proximity to other places. So that's what we'll be proposing here after we are to continue studying it a little bit more and seeing what the state does. The last thing is, Councilmember Hansen had mentioned it. This had come up within the last month, possible centennial essay contest. It was another thing that was thought of that might be a good way to engage the public and help celebrate the centennial. So I guess what I'm looking for tonight from the council is if that's something that the city would want to be involved in or promote or run. I know that the Legion had voiced some interest in the concept. I guess, Councilmember Hanson, do you have any other information from what you had learned?
From the Legion?
Yes.
Yeah, I talked to Commander Quick about it, and he thought it seemed like a good idea, I think. It was a really brief conversation. I had suggested that we ask kids to write essays, and he suggested that we ask old people to write essays. So he said they'll be more emotional. So I thought that was really cute. So I don't know, we haven't confirmed anything about it, or it was just an idea, because I thought at the groundbreaking, it would be fun to have those essays read, you know, if the people could come and read them or whatever, just something to help with the celebration. And we could also display them or put them, I don't know, we still need to think through the whole process. It was just a little brain child that I had. Because someone suggested it, I think, in the survey too.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, just so you know, I didn't put that in the survey.
It wouldn't take much to come up with some type of contest or program event for this. It doesn't have to be too elaborate, but we could have a category for youth, children as well as adults, and they're pardon?
Adults.
Just adults?
Well, no,
Oh.
children and adults, but not,
Yes.
Yeah,
not limiting it to what
old people.
could be
Oh.
considered.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a
Yes,
term
it would
that
be school age,
I find
school
I
age,
just thought it was funny. Yeah,
school age
that wouldn't
residents
fly in
and,
business.
no, it wouldn't.
non-school age residents. So if the council is supportive of that, staff can work on that and follow up with the council as needed.
Yeah, is that a city or a BCal?
Well,
or
that's what I
do
was
we-
gonna say, if it works better for it to be a BCal thing in order for us to have, because to get people to write essays, I think there needs to be prizes involved. So I don't know if it's difficult for the city to, get gift cards from businesses or that kind of thing, if that's doesn't really play well.
I guess, yeah, it would depend on what that actually looks like. I guess if what I would be looking for the council at this point would be, any participation by the city staff to dedicate time working with
Okay.
ECAL, or Legion,
Gotcha.
or anybody, if there's any other organizations in the community that would want to be a part of this.
I would think as far as publicity and that kind of thing, having city staff probably read all the essays probably might be a little bit time consuming
Right,
for them,
yeah.
so,
Yeah,
liaison.
we were gonna send it to council.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
The Legion.
You can send us the they'd be fun, they'd
I'd
be
love
truly
to read
fun
all
to
of
read, but,
Well, yeah, I thought we could have the council be judges, but that's up to, you don't all have to do it, we just need, a few, 3, whatever. So,
all right, so I guess,
If-
anyone
unless
have any
there's any
objection to
objection.
city staff just being a liaison and kind of helping as, okay,
Help facilitate.
all right,
thank you.
all right, is that it?
That is all I had this evening.
Okay, any other items or announcements? If not, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Connie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Did it.